Well, Texas Longhorns, Jeff Banks' squad, you're back on top. Let's get into it with Polis Husband. Do you think Ohio State has a better argument?
Yes.
Number one team in the country than what the
Yes.
AP top 25 poll suggests?
Yes. Texas's two best wins are Michigan, which is now what, 3-2 or 4-2. They've had two losses. I know that. And Mississippi State. Ohio State's beaten Michigan State and Iowa. And I think Iowa, of those four, might be the best win to this point for any of those teams. I think that they have been more impressive week in and week out. I think that if you look at their non-conference schedules, I mean, Texas played Colorado State, UTSA, and ULM, although ULM is pretty decent. Ohio State played Akron, Western, and Marshall. So it's like I throw those out. I just look at how they've played in conference and against other Power 5 teams. And I think Ohio State's two wins by a combined total of 28, 31, 59 points are more impressive than Texas's wins over Michigan and Mississippi State.
I don't know. I still think going to the big house, winning the way they did, dominating start to finish is impressive. More impressive than what Ohio State has done at home versus Iowa or on the road against Michigan State. I think it's really splitting hairs.
Yeah, I think it's splitting hairs more than the 52-9 first place vote, split is. That was the thing from the AP poll that stood out to me. I predicted that Texas would go to number one. I thought that there would be more back and forth there than there was.
Probably the voters, and even like myself, are saying, well, I'll just flip them if Ohio State wins this weekend at Eugene. Because then I think if they do that, I think even no matter what, I mean, if Texas blows out, 2-touchdown favorite against Oklahoma, but I would expect more votes to come in Ohio State's way if they do beat Oregon. I think that's kind of what people are waiting for.
I just think you can make the argument that they beat the third best version of Michigan, the Davis Warren version.
Well, that's not 100% sure yet, but it sure didn't look.
Yeah, what is the best?
We don't know. I bet we might see Davis Warren again. I'll just say that.
Honestly, they lost. They lost at Seattle, but I thought the offense looked better with Tuttle than it did at any other point in the year.
With the exception of the turnover stuff, yeah, I agree.
Well, the only reason they didn't turn it over with Orgy is because he never throws.
Well, no, but I think that's part of the equation here. Like, in order to overcome the turnovers, you need to be like a lot more efficient. Mm-hmm. And I think it was interesting how it kind of opened up Edwards, the way that Washington started to play them, because Edwards wasn't doing a whole lot when Orgy was in.
Right.
I don't know with these receivers if a pocket passing quarterback is the best way to win. Like, these guys don't scare me if I'm a defensive coordinator in the Big Ten. They're not like. How much better are Michigan's receivers than Iowa's receivers? Like they're better. And Iowa fans got mad at me when I said none of the Iowa receivers would be on scholarship at Ohio State. And now after this weekend, I would like to triple down on that statement, actually. But like, is Michigan?
We'll find out, because one of their former receivers was on a scholarship at Ohio State.
Oh no! How are they going to replace what do you have? How many catches do you have this year? I don't know.
He has not been a factor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is splitting hairs, but I think that the win over Iowa is more impressive at this point than what Texas beat in Michigan.
I did it again on Saturday night, just in the raw moment. I come on the reaction pod and I'm sitting here nitpicking an Ohio State victory. Then on Sunday, I have to fill out a CBS Sports 134 ballot, and I'm breaking everything down, and I put Ohio State at number one. Like I think last week I said Oklahoma's not a top 25 team. And then I had to write out 25 teams. And sure enough, I put Oklahoma inside the top 25. It's like there are the emotional reactions sometimes that we give you just based on, the vibes, what we take, our notes or notepad, but like actually hold my feet to the fire. I think Ohio State at this moment is the number one team in the country. I think the fact that they have not been able to meet my sky-high expectations does not mean that they don't deserve to be on top of all the other teams, most of whom are not meeting whatever your mind's eye is of what they could be. They have, I think they have the best defense in the entire country. And that with the how fast it can just snap on you. And I think that was seen. They come out, they're up 7-0 at halftime. They come out of the locker room, and wasn't it 4 straight touchdown drives or at least like touchdowns on 4 of their 5 second half possessions, like right out of the locker room. That's what good teams do. They take a close game and they put it away. And so I come out of the weekend more impressed with the Buckeyes maybe than I sounded on Saturday night.
I'll also say one thing to consider when you're splitting these hairs. One team has their starting quarterback healthy. The other doesn't.
See, I give them more credit for that, though. The fact that they have not dropped off a beat. And I don't know about I think Ewers is back.
State.
What's that?
They've played ULM and Mississippi State.
Trust me, some teams that would devastate if they had a backup quarterback playing even against that competition.
Some teams it would devastate their starting quarterback playing against that competition.
Didn't I knew it could possibly happen. Oh, by the way, shout out to a 3-way tie for 18th. You don't get to see all those.
You don't see that a lot, do you?
You don't see that a lot, but
poor old Indiana. You just can't throw them a bone.
I know.
Let them have 18 all by themselves.
You've got Indiana tied with a Kansas State team that got beat to hell by BYU and Oklahoma. It's like, come on, guys.
We made it inside the top 20, but you have to share it.
What do you do with that? Are you supposed to put like 18A, or is there like a denotion where you're supposed to put it at?
Well, don't let Kalen DeBoer figure it out. We'll have 2 number 2s on the field at the same time.
Right.
There's 2 number 18s out there. What's going to happen?
Ralph Russo leaves the AP and it just goes right to hell. 3 teams at 18.
Yeah, 2 teams at 11 too.
2 teams at 11. Yeah. Somebody's got to break these ties. Ralph's got to go back there and let him know how it's supposed to work.
But I am not surprised. I am disappointed that Missouri still there at 21. Michigan still there at 24. Still no Navy. Still no Army. Come on, y'all.
Got to keep Alabama and Tennessee in the top 10.
So I released my projected college ball playoff, and I had Boise getting the bye and not the Big 12 champion. Do you know? I'm going to save this other version that I almost ran, because what I do is I run my simulations and then I just take like an interesting one that is pretty high up in the probability. Next week's, if things play out this weekend, like I think, is going to be, it's going to break your brain.
If things play out this weekend. So basically for those, I have seen the graphic. We'll be sharing it on our social media. The idea is that Boise State likely has finished this season, with 1 loss? Mountain West champ?
12-1, and the 1 loss is a single score loss at a team that the committee will have hosting a playoff game in Oregon.
Yeah, and I just imagine that if that is like based on
it's like a 3-loss Big 12 champion team with 0 wins over any ranked teams.
Well, if you take the Boise State 1 loss, the only loss was to Oregon in a competitive game. They won all their other games. They were conference champion. Like historically, those teams, unless it was the Cincinnati team that actually made the playoff, they're like number 8 or 9. They are up inside the top 10. And so the theory then would be your Big 12 champion is lower than that.
To Bud's point, I think way too many people are just getting a little bit lazy and just putting Boise State in at 12. Right. I mean, because they could even if they don't get the first round bye, there's a really good chance they could be
9, 10, 8.
Yeah, they probably should be.
But here's why I would push back against that. Because even if they finish 11-1, what's their best win?
Well, 12-1. And they would have beaten UNLV twice, which has 2 wins over Big 12 teams.
And also
UNLV went on the road to Kansas and won, and they also beat Houston.
Yeah, but UNLV might still lose. I just look at Boise State's schedule, and it's like the best thing on their resume is they hung tough with Oregon right now. And I'm not saying they're not a good team and they're not going to win the Mountain West and they won't deserve the spot. I am skeptical that a Boise State team that hasn't beaten anybody will be ranked over the Big 12 champion.
What do you think?
Who will the Big 12 champion have beaten? I think that's one of your issues here. Like if they have 3 losses, like what good wins are they going to have?
Well, currently looking at the rankings, there's one Big 12 team at 11. There's another at 14. There's another at 16. There's one tied for 18. I just think that the committee will look at the Big 12 as a much tougher league than the Mountain West. And I know my numbers also suggest that the Big 12, while not a great league, is a much tougher league than the Mountain West.
From a league standpoint, but like, I mean, you would take Boise over everybody except for what? Rising Utah at this point, I think. Or you
Oh,
think,
no,
well, I
we-
guess
I'm not Utah. I've put until Rising's dead.
Oh,
I have pushed
yeah.
Utah
Sure.
out the
Okay,
paint.
fair.
the Big
I'd
12
take
right
Iowa
now.
State.
Yeah,
over
the Big 12 right
Boise.
now is hanging its hopes on Iowa State and BYU.
Yeah, Iowa State's a 3-point favorite this weekend in Morgantown.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like if the Big 12 champ is 3 losses, maybe. But even then, I'm not sure. I think it's going to take like an 9-4 Big 12 champion for Boise
Ooh.
or any other G5 team to jump them.
I don't know. I think they'll start leapfrogging them. Like you mentioned, those teams, if they start picking each other up and Boise just keeps rolling, you know what I think it hurts maybe more than their ranking is probably Ashton Genty's Heisman hopes. Because I was having that conversation this morning. And I do, like, you start looking at his numbers and they're off the charts. But, you know, it's Utah State, as you guys mentioned after. At some point, I do think the competition he's facing hurts him.
Just put together those numbers, baby. Just get to 2,700.
Yeah.
Then we can we can start having that conversation. Anything else from the AP top 25 poll that stands out after the latest update?
I mean, Missouri, I guess that the win over Vandy looks better for them.
True. It's
Get them out. Come on. I mean, that's got to be Missouri's fantastic journalism school coming through in the clutch. You know?
I just feel like at this point of the season, when most teams have only played 5 and a few have played 6, if you have a 2-loss team on your ballot, you're just being lazy. You're just looking at
like
names
that.
and going up and down and just like, oh, well, Michigan. Yeah, they're 4-2, but they're Michigan. They're at USC. Oh, they're 3-2, but they're USC. It's just you're not putting the effort into your ballot, which, you know what? I get. For some people, you've got a deadline and a story to file, and you really don't have time to be up until 4 a.m. filling out your ballot to make sure you don't have a single transgression in there that nobody could pick apart. But some spots are easy. When there are as many 1-loss and undefeated teams like, you know, your Navies, your Armies, your Nebraskas, your Washington States, your Texas Techs, all these teams that have had good starts, you could just throw them in place of Michigan on your ballot.
Surprised Texas Tech didn't get more, but yeah. I mean, I guess when you see 352 voting points for Missouri and 170 voting points for that 2-loss Michigan team, that's where those spots went on the ballot. We will see if they continue